In our previous Pokemon Moon's Versus race, we played through Alolan Raichu and Cantonian Raichu in Pokemon Moon, and both of those Pokemon did extremely good, earning themselves positions in my S tier. Today, we're going to continue with another Cantonian species and its Alolan counterpart. Today, we'll be seeing how fast Sandslash and Alolan Sandslash can beat Pokemon Moon in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the race. These two Pokemon share completely different typings. It's not like the previous Alolan forms we've ran so far, that being Raticate and Raichu. At least compared to their Cantonian forms, they did share one common typing. These two Pokemon share no types in common. The regular Sandslash is Ground type, while the Alolan Sandslash is Ice and Steel. Very completely different typings. But before we go over that, we need to go over the stats. For Cantonian Sandslash, we have 75 HP, 100 attack, 110 defense, 45 special attack, 55 special defense, and 65 speed. Looking real quickly at the Alolan Sandslash, we have the exact same HP, attack, and speed. The difference is with the other three stats. Alolan Sandslash gets 10 more defense, 20 less special attack, and 10 more special defense. So it basically removes some of its special attack and gives it to its defensive stats. Honestly, that is definitely a better stat spread, mainly just because neither of these Pokemon are really going to be using special moves that much. And because of that, both of our Pokemon are going to be running plus speed minus special attack natures. Another major difference with these two Pokemon is that Alolan Sandslash is actually a stone evolution. It evolves from Alolan Sandshrew with the Ice Stone, while the regular Sandshrew evolves by level up, and because of that, we get completely different level up sets. Alolan Sandslash pretty much doesn't get a level up set. It's going to start with Slash, Defense Curl, Ice Ball, and Metal Claw. It only gets Icicle Sphere via evolution, but obviously that's not going to be a thing for us, and we're not going to have access to Icicle Crash, Icicle Spear, or Metal Burst until we get to the move reminder at the Pokemon League. But if we take a quick look at Cantonian Sandslash, we actually get a level up set. We're going to start off with Scratch, Defense Curl, Sand Attack, and Poison Sting. Very mediocre starting set. It's a shame we don't start with Crush Claw. Then at level 3 and 5 we get identical moves, and at level 7 we get a new move, Rollout. Such a shame we don't start with it because the Cantonian Sandslash is actually going to lose to the first rival fight because he starts with Poplio. And after that we get Rapid Spin at level 9. If you're wondering if Rapid Spin will raise our speed, it actually does not. The speed boost from that move wasn't added until Generation 8, which is one generation later. So that move is just straight up pointless to us. And at level 11 we'll get Fury Cutter, which believe it or not is going to be extremely useful for us today. This was actually my second attempt playing the Cantonian Sandslash. I actually started over 30 minutes in because I didn't teach Fury Cutter when I should have. And we also get Magnitude, Swift, Fury Swipes, Sand Tomb, Slash, Dig, Gyro Ball, Swords Dance, Sandstorm, and Earthquake. It is not that common that we get to see Earthquake in a Sun and Moon playthrough, because the TM for it is in the postgame. And if we also take a quick look at both of their TM sets, they both learn very identical moves. They both get Swords Dance, for example, but the biggest differences is that Cantonian Sandslash is going to have Rock type moves. Meanwhile, the Alolan form is not only going to get Ice moves, but also Leech Life and Workup. I have no idea why the Alolan version gets Workup and Leech Life, but the Cantonian one doesn't. So that's definitely going to be a disadvantage for the Cantonian Sandslash, at least until we get Swords Dance. And weirdly enough, neither of these Pokemon are going to get Home Claws because it's not a TM anymore in Gen 7. And I feel like before we move on with Cantonian Sandslash and clearing out Melee Island, I need to talk about their weaknesses since their typings are completely different. The Cantonian Sandslash is weak to water, grass, and ice. That's going to make the second island kind of difficult. And we do resist two typings, poison and rock, and we're completely immune to electric. Alolan Sandslash has 3 weaknesses as well, fire, fighting, and ground, but the problem is, fire and fighting are 4 times weaknesses, while ground is just a 2 times weakness. That is going to make the Salazzle trial, as well as the Holofights, pretty difficult. And we get a bunch of resistances. We resist normal, flying, grass, psychic, bug, dragon, fairy, 4 times resist ice, and we're completely immune to poison. I would always say in my Moon versus races that the Salazzle is also sorta like the Poison type trial, but it also has Fire moves, so that's kind of irrelevant. Anyway, I think I've been rambling on too long with these two Pokemon. Why don't we continue with Cantonian Sandslash and see how it does at Raticate. The number one reason I wanted Fury Cutter is because Fury Cutter is my only way of knocking out this Raticate. I start off turn 1 with a Fury Cutter and it does about a third. It probably would have been a 2-shot if it didn't get that defense boost. Unfortunately, I do miss my second Fury Cutter, but I was aiming on the Rattata anyway, which was going to be a 1-shot on the first turn. And then for the second Fury Cutter, it will knock out the Raticate from the remainder of its health. It's just a good thing that Fury Cutter was upgraded to 40 base power in this game. I don't remember which generation upgraded it, but originally in Generation 2, it had a power of 10. It was so bad. We technically also get the Brick Break TM as well, so we could have just used Brick Break instead, but Fury Cutter will have some niche uses later. And right now, as we head our way towards Hala, we did get Magnitude by level up. This is going to be the move we have to rely on for Hala, and that's kind of irritating because some of you may know, Magnitude is a very random move. Magnitude, it does anywhere from Magnitude 4 to Magnitude 10. Magnitude 4 is a base power of 10, not including the same type attack bonus, and Magnitude 10 is 150 power, and the average is Magnitude 7, which is 70 base power. How we need to defeat Hala is, on the Makuhita, since it's very defensive, we need to knock it out with 2 Magnitudes, but the only way we can 2-shot it is if both of them get at least an 8. That's definitely asking for a lot, but why don't we just see how this goes. Hala leads off with his Mankey. I'm not really that scared of it. It'll be a simple 2-shot with Brick Break. I hope it uses Focus Energy, but it didn't. Oh well, Makuhita goes for Fake Out, and unfortunately, my Magnitude is able to 1-shot. Then on the Crab Brawler, unfortunately Magnitude does not 2-shot. And believe it or not, I was expecting it to go all-out plummeting, which is why I held a Citrus Berry for this fight. It actually never went for it. I was actually pretty surprised by that. I think it's because the Sandslashes will have very good defense, but I can definitely assure you the Alolan Sandslash is going to have a way more difficult time here. The Cantonian Sandslash beats Hala with a time of 27 minutes and 40 seconds. Thankfully, since Alolan Sandslash, as I've mentioned before, is a stone evolution, it does start off with far better moves. Instead of Scratch and Poison Sting, we get Slash, Ice Ball, and Metal Claw. That's going to be very helpful to have. And we also do get Brick Break as well. Sadly, no Fury Cutter, but we get Leech Life, which I'd argue is better. Rather unfortunate though, the early game doesn't go as well as Cantonian Sandslash just because I get 2 blackouts on Teacher Emily's Magnemite. I mean, it's to be expected. A lot of Pokemon actually struggle with that Magnemite. As we arrive at the Alolan Raticate, I start off by using a Brick Break and it 1-shots. Next, Hala is going to rely on a completely different strategy. I'm going to go into the fight with Silk Scarf, Slash, Ice Ball, Work Up, and Metal Claw. Right away on the Mankey turn 1, I'm going to go for Work Up as it hits me with Karate Chop, dealing 40 damage and getting a critical hit. I decided to take a quick reset because of that. I wanted to go for Focus Energy turn 1 so I don't get damaged by it. On the second attempt, I go use 1 Work Up, and it hits me with Karate Chop, doing slightly less than half. I mean, at least it didn't crit. I'm going to be spamming Ice Ball. Unfortunately, the Crab Brawler does survive and kill me with all-out plummeting. I frankly have no idea why I'm going with Silk Scarf here if my plan is to use Ice Ball. I think what happened was I was supposed to 2-shot the Mankey, but I think I 1-shot it that one time because of a crit, and because of that I went to the Crab Brawler with a +2 Ice Ball instead of +3. I really should have used Defense Curl as well here, but I think using Work Up will achieve a similar result. At 3 resets into the run, I finally get the fight to go proper. Alolan Sandslash defeats Hala with a real time of 26 minutes and 42 seconds. So right now, both of our contenders did not get a good Hala split, but the Alolan Sandslash is ahead just barely. It's ahead by roughly 58 seconds. That was mainly because of starting with better level up moves. However, as both of our contenders get into the mid game, I do think as both of them get good moves, I do believe the Cantonian one will pull out ahead because that 4 times weakness to fire and fighting is definitely going to hurt us. But why don't we continue with Alolan Sandslash and see how well Akala Island does. Before I leave Melee Island, I go back to the Seaward Cave and get myself the Expert Bell. I also get myself the Shell Bell as well. That's funny, I actually rhymed there. I also go into the grass where Munchlax spawn just south of Iki Town. I need to find myself the leftovers, and I actually found the Munchlax extraordinarily quickly. I found it within 5 encounters, which was pretty insane. I go ahead and catch myself the Munchlax for the leftovers. The reason I need the leftovers is because they are very helpful when doing SOS training without going to heal at the center. Although this little guy is becoming a pain to catch because he summons another Munchlax. Well, at least I get HP EVs. Now I can set sail to Akala Island, and then immediately set sail back to Melee. I forgot one more thing. I go back to the Verdant Cavern and pick myself up the TM for Thief. You may be wondering where I need Thief for, and it's going to come up pretty soon. Okay, now we're back at Akala Island for real. The first of the 3 trials is going to be the Water type trial with Wishy-Washy. The Wishy-Washy has been proving itself more difficult lately. I also did learn recently how they summon helpers. Apparently, the Wishy-Washy will summon another Wishy-Washy if after turn 1, before activating the Citrus Berry, it's left at 2/3 HP or higher. If it's lower than 2/3, it'll summon a Lomomola, which is way more difficult to deal with because of Heal Pulse and Helping Hand. So ideally, I would want to use a setup or a weak move so it summons another Wishy-Washy, but at the same time, that other Wishy-Washy isn't that easy either. That thing does like using Brine, which is pretty annoying, and they both like using Growl. I have on my tier list the 2 bottom tiers being the Komodo tier and the Wishy-Washy tier. I still do personally believe on absolute average, the Wishy-Washy is worse because I've had fire types first try it because it went for Soak turn 1. I think theoretically, best case scenario, Wishy-Washy can be more difficult than Komodo, but Komodo does come very late, but the Komodo at least gets very good moves, and if it does summon Scizor, which it only summons Scizor at below 2/3 health, which almost never happens because of turn 1 Protect. But whether I change my mind if Wishy-Washy or Komodo is more difficult, I'm gonna leave my tier list the way it is just so it doesn't confuse me or the viewers. Anyway, at the Paniola Ranch, I do this little side quest by fighting a Tauros and I get myself the Scope Lens. And also out of force of habit, I do pick up the Hidden Power TM. And yeah, I'm not using this move. As you can tell, I have Hidden Power Dark, which essentially means I'm not using Hidden Power. But I guess while we're at it, I'm going to talk about our ability in nature. Our ability for Alolan Sandslash is Slush Rush. It's kind of like Sand Rush, which doubles your speed in Sandstorm, except Slush Rush applies to Hail. This is going to be useful for a very couple niche fights. It's better than our other abilities at least. And as I mentioned earlier, our Nature's Jolly for extra speed and less special attack. At Brookit Hill, before fighting the Totem Wishy-Washy, I do a small bit of SOS training on regular Wishy-Washys. Not because I want the HP EVs, I'm just trying to squeeze in one extra level before the Totem fight. So now, why don't we go ahead and equip the Scope Lens and fight the Totem Wishy-Washy. Turn 1, I just have to hope it doesn't go for Growl, which I guess even if it does use Growl, it's not that big of a deal because the Scope Lens with Slash is going to crit 50% of the time. I essentially just have to get lucky with my crits in order to win. But on the bright side though, if I can get the crits in, the Growls effectively don't matter. Although I would still prefer it to crit every time though, so this is going to take a couple of tries. Thankfully, it only takes me 2 resets to actually beat the Wishy-Washy. I end up beating it on the 3rd try when I get lucky with crits. Alrighty, Fire Trial is coming up next. I enter the Thrifty Mega Mart, get myself the TM for rest, and I stock up on some repels as well. Cantonian Sandslash will have an advantage here, 1 because it's not weak to fire, and 2, I will actually get the move Rock Tomb. Sadly though, Alolan Sandslash cannot learn Rock Tomb, so this is going to be a little tricky. You may be wondering what my plan is. Well, according to my notes, I need level 30 with Thief, Slash, and Normalium Z. The reason I need level 30 is that way so Breakneck Blitz based off of Slash will be a guaranteed one-shot against the Salazzle to avoid it knocking me out in return. And the reason we're using Thief is so that way with the Expert Belt, we have the ability to one-shot the Marowaks for very fast training. Well, I'm not going to one-shot them at the start, but eventually as I gain levels, I will start one-shotting them. But after I train up to level 30 exclusively on Marowaks, we can go ahead and fight the Salazzle. Thankfully, at least I get plenty of defense EVs, which isn't really going to help me for Salazzle, but it'll help me elsewhere. Anyway, let's start Salazzle. At turn 1, I go ahead and use Breakneck Blitz, and as I charge up an attack, it actually lives at a very small amount of health. I think looking back at this, I probably should have done some slight piggy pack training, and because of that, it's not guaranteed. If we take a look at this range I put in Kingler Calc, Breakneck Blitz based on Slash with my current EVs is only a 37.5% chance to one-hit. That is kinda bad. If I don't get more levels, I just gotta hope I get lucky. You may be asking yourself, wouldn't it have been better to just run an attack boosting nature? Theoretically, if this was any other game, yes, but with how fast the opponents are in the late game, I'm going to need a plus speed nature with 65 base speed. On the second try on the Salazzle, I used Breakneck Blitz and I actually one-shot. I got the 37% range. So yep, there we go, second try. Before continuing on to the Lurantis, which is going to be easy anyway with Ice Ball, I equip myself the leftovers, and combining Hidden Power Dark just to do very small chip damage to the Pikipeks, and just spamming Slash or just stalling with workup, I'm going to be SOS training on Pikipeks for attack EVs. What EVs do I need by the end of the game? By the time I get to Professor Kukui, I need level 75 with 52 HP, 160 attack, 64 defense, and 116 speed. We can essentially get the speed we need from Carbos, we got all the defense we need from the Marowaks, so I'm going to need to do quite a bit of attack training, so we're going to be here for a little bit. I really should have done this before fighting Salazzle though, that was kind of a mistake on my part. I do stop the SOS training at around 90 attack EVs. Because in the late game when we do the Aether Paradise, a lot of the trainers there have Pokemon that give attack EVs. I mean, even if we don't make it, we can always use the EV reduction berries and just go back to the Paniyola Ranch later, because all the Pokemon in the Paniyola Ranch with the exception of Miltank give attack EVs. Okay, why don't we go take on Lurantis now? I think this is going to be pretty easy. Right away, I'm going to go for one Ice Ball, and it does about a third, but I'm pretty confident turn 2 will knock it out. So then right away, I use a second Ice Ball, and it actually survived. Okay, I should have equipped the Expert Belt, that was my fault. And unfortunately, not only do I miss an Ice Ball, but the cast form crit me with Weather Ball in the sun. So yeah, that was 4 times damage if I've ever seen it. I did not equip the Expert Belt for the second attempt, but at least I get a better range on the Lurantis, so it was fine either way. And I do second try the Lurantis trial. With the Lurantis trial done, I do go back and train on some more Pikipeks. I thought I was confident, but looking back at this, I was doing my run in the Discord, and some other people mentioned that there's a chance I probably won't get the amount of attack EVs I need in time. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go back and train some more. I should have just bitten the bullet and just did it all at once. Oh well. I'm not too worried about Olivia though, because none of her Pokemon can really hit me for super effective damage. I mean, the Boldore has Mud Slap, but that's about it really. So right away turn 1, I use Safeguard just to block Thunder Wave. I go ahead and use one workup, and then I'm going to 2-shot it with Brick Break because of Sturdy. I needed the +1 to guarantee I can one-shot the Lycanroc with Brick Break. It does go for Continental Crush, but it does less than half. And the Boldore gets sent out last just because Mud Slap does so little damage. I go ahead and beat Olivia with a time of 1 hour, 28 minutes, and 29 seconds. That is a very, very bad Olivia split. Let's see how Sandslash does in this section of the game. Before I leave Melee Island with Cantonian Sandslash, I get myself the Expert Belt, and then I go into the 10 Carat Hill and get myself the Hard Stone. This will boost the power of Rock-type moves by 20%. I could use this with Rollout, Rock Tomb, or Rock Slide. I also pick up the Shell Bell as well. Thankfully, we're not going to really need leftovers for this Pokemon either because the EV yields that we need aren't as harsh as the Alolan version. I only need 120 attack and 156 speed. Getting the 156 speed isn't that big of a deal. We can actually just use Carbos and then train up on Fearos if we need to. Or do SOS trainings on Zubats in the late game. With Hidden Power Grass, which is my hidden power of choice, I could be 30 levels higher than Zubat with my bad special attack, and they'll probably live in red health or something. Our ability for Cantonian Sandslash is actually Sand Rush. During a sandstorm, it'll double my speed. I'm also going Jolly Nature here as well. In the Paniola Ranch, I do pick myself up the Scope Lens as well. Unfortunately, I don't start with Slash. I don't get Slash until level 28, so I'm gonna have to wait a while on that. Before I fight the Totem Wishiwashi, I do fight a bunch of the local trainers and some wild Pokemon to make sure I'm level 23 over a damage rounding threshold. I'm still holding my Citrus Berry from earlier, and my plan here is just to use Magnitude. I think I should have used Hidden Power Grass with the Expert Bell, but with how bad my special attack is, I don't think it would have mattered. Thankfully, my second Magnitude gets a Magnitude 9, but the Wishiwashi is actually playing smart and it's just attacking with Water Gun instead of going for something like Soak. This is definitely the best that Wishiwashi has played in a long time. I remember at the time I was playing this is the worst Wishiwashi fight I've ever had. I ended up at the end of the day just switching to Scope Lens with Fury Cutter. I do switch to Magnitude later though. The only way to effectively win this fight is to get Soak turn 1 right away and just hope you don't get hit with Growl. And if you do get hit with Growl, just hope that Scope Lens saves the day. I end up getting 10 resets here before I finally win. This was the one battle that made me truly decide if Wishiwashi truly was the worst, but instead the second worst. Okay, time for Marowak training. I'm essentially just going to hold the Expert Belt and just spam Magnitude on most of these guys. I do have Rock Tomb as well, just in case like Magnitude gets disabled by Curse Body, or if I run out of PP. Having the PP of Rock Tomb with Magnitude is very good. Magnitude just has so much PP. I'm going to need a minimum level of level 30 for Olivia, and that's going to be a little difficult to get with the medium fast level up group, so I'm going to be training on Marowaks for a little bit. I'm also going to need the training for Lurantis anyway. I continue training on the Marowaks until I get level 28 and then head right away to the Salazzle. Right away turn 1, I decide whether to go for Magnitude or Rock Tomb. I decide to go for Magnitude. I roll a Magnitude 7, and that's actually enough to one-shot it. So yeah, way better time than the Alolan version had. Don't forget my once a week mandatory blackout to the trainer with Miltank that loves to use Bite on me. You know what, that one blackout wasn't enough. Let me get a second one. Okay, let's fight Lurantis now. The number one reason I needed Fury Cutter was for Lurantis. It was the reason I started over my first run. Right away what I'm going to do is with the Expert Belt, I'm going to start stacking Fury Cutters. Unfortunately, my first one misses, which is pretty freaking stupid. That move is 95% accurate for crying out loud. And I actually missed twice in a row. So yeah, very horrible start. On the second fight, I land the Fury Cutter, and it does about a quarter to a third. Unfortunately, the second Fury Cutter is not enough to two-shot from there, and because of that, I'm able to get knocked out. On the third attempt, I'm going to go for a completely different strategy. I actually bought the TM for Sandstorm back at the Battle Royale Avenue place in the Pokemon Center. I'm going to activate a Sandstorm, not only because it'll make Solar Blade take 2 turns, but also because of Sand Rush, it will double my speed, allowing me to outspeed the Lurantis. And when I am able to outspeed the Lurantis, I am actually able to defeat it. Thankfully, Cantonian Sandslash does not need to do EV training. I can go ahead and make my way to Coney City, and before I fight Olivia, I'm going to buy one TM, Shadow Claw. This will mainly come into effect once we get to the Ghost Trial. Olivia is just straight up not difficult for either of our contenders today. In fact, I'm still holding the Amulet Coin for more money. I go ahead and just two-shot the Nose Pass because of Sturdy. I do need to get a little bit lucky with magnitudes though, and then I decide to go for Sandstorm before heading out to the Lycanroc. The Lycanroc, I believe, has a little bit over 70 speed, so if I don't do this, it will outspeed. But looking back at this, what was even the benefit of doing that? It doesn't really have good moves on me anyway. I do get a little unfortunate with magnitude near the end. I get a magnitude 5 doing little damage, but then I get a magnitude 8 right afterwards, allowing the knockout. Cantonian Sandslash gets an Olivia split of 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 51 seconds. Oh, how things just did a complete 180 on themselves. Instead of Alolan Sandslash being in the lead by 58 seconds, we are now ahead with the Cantonian version by 16 minutes and 38 seconds. Doing attack EV training definitely ruined Alolan Sandslash's chances of being in the lead, probably the chances of it winning the race as well. But at the same time, I know for an absolute fact if I do not have 160 attack EVs by the time I get to the league, things are going to be so much worse than they already are. Theoretically, I could have just bought protein and just hoped the Aether Paradise would give me enough, but I am very doubtful it would have given me enough. I can guarantee you, if Generation 7 was the generation that changed how vitamins work instead of being Gen 8, you know, where I can use vitamins up to 252, these Sun and Moon runs would actually go a lot faster. It would make SOS training almost irrelevant, because I could just save up a buttload of money and buy like 13 or 14 protein or something. But unfortunately, that's just not how it works in this game. I do think the third island is going to become even easier for both of our contenders, because not only is there no fire and fighting and grass and water specialists on the next island, but both of our contenders will get access to the best setup move in the game, Swords Dance. So why don't we continue on with Cantonian Sandslash and see how well the Ula Ula Island section goes, where there is the Electric Trial, the Ghost Trial, also all the fights with Guzma and Nanu at the very end. Blah blah blah, Aether Paradise stuff, nobody cares. Ooh look, the first hard rival fight, the one where he has the Alolan Raichu. Right away, I go for magnitude 7 after hitting me with Psychic, and I do one-shot it. That's good. Although I'm not so sure how well the Brionne's gonna do, because at this point, the Brionne, instead of having the Normalium Z, it now has the Waterium Z, and obviously I'm not gonna survive a Hydro Vortex. Inside of the Ula Ula Mali City Pokemon Center, I do buy 2 TMs here, Swords Dance and Bulldoze. I'm not completely sure how useful Bulldoze is going to be since we get Dig by level up, but I may as well just get it, it's better than nothing. In the building right next to the library, I do get myself the Weather Rocks. I generally sell most of these rocks for money, although there is an argument into keeping the Smooth Rock. I may or may not decide to keep it. If I don't keep it, I'll just sell it for $2,000 for vitamins. Whatever. As I'm fighting the trainers on Route 10, after I defeat this beauty's Steenie, I am going to learn the move Dig. Dig is just going to be way better than Magnitude and more consistent. I also do teach Bulldoze at the same time as well. Bulldoze is going to be very useful for the Mimikyu trial especially, not only to break the disguise of the Mimikyu, but also to lower its speed. Because with that Omni Boost, Mimikyu has 132 speed. Almost nothing can outspeed that. In fact, if you remember last week's video with the Raichus, Alolan Raichu needed a plus speed nature despite how fast it was because of our weakness to ghost moves. We could not afford that thing outspeeding us, so I had to make sure I outsped. That's how difficult it is for most Pokemon to outspeed, so knocking out its disguise with a speed control move like Bulldoze or Rock Tomb is definitely a good idea. After I defeat Mullane, I head into the observatory, pick myself up the Comet Shard, sell a bunch of stuff, and buy some vitamins. And today's Vitamin of the Day is 3 protein and 3 carbos. I did pick up a carbos on Akala Island that I just forgot to use, so I only ended up buying 2. Attack and speed is all I really need to worry about. I'm still going to need plenty more attack and speed, but I can easily get that later. And later means right now. I'm going to go back to Verdant Cavern and do some SOS training on Zubats. You may be wondering why I need to do this. I originally thought I was going to get the rest of my Speed EVs at the Aether Paradise during all those trainer battles, but Eelstargetta, who is in my Discord server watching, he informed me that most of the Pokemon in that area of the game give attack EVs. So I won't have to worry about attack, but I'm going to need to get my speed from somewhere else. So instead of fighting all those Fearow, I don't really need the XP from the Fearows that desperately. so I actually decided to go SOS Train on Zubats instead. It's very annoying to SOS Train on them because they like to confuse me with Supersonic, and they'll use Absorb to heal themselves out of Red Bar, making it significantly harder for them to SOS Train reliably. Fortunately for me though, they do cooperate, and just after 5 or so minutes, I get to 146 speed EVs. This should be good enough for now. I can just fight Fearos to get the rest. Okay, now let's go fight Vikavolt. Right away, I go into the fight with the Rock EMZ and Rock Tomb. I'm going to use Continental Crush to do as much damage as I can, and Bug Bite doesn't do that much to me. Then what I can do from here is one singular regular Rock Tomb will be enough to knock it out. You may be wondering why I didn't just use a normal Rock Tomb first. I just went for the Z move thinking I might get a crit or something, but I don't think Z moves can crit. Someone might have to fact check me on that though. Either way, the trial's pretty easy. The Guzma fight in the city square is easy as well, and since we get Gyro Ball by level up, I can skip needing the TM for it and just go straight to the Mimikyu at level 38 with Gyro Ball on my moveset. So why don't we go ahead and play the intro. My moveset for the Mimikyu is Bulldoze, Gyro Ball, Rock Tomb, and Swords Dance with the Steel EMZ. What I'm going to do turn 1 is I'm going to use Bulldoze not only for the speed control, but also to break the disguise. I for some reason cannot find where Bulldoze is on my moveset, but once I eventually find it, the Mimikyu just goes for turn 1 Mimic. Even if it had attacked me, it wouldn't have been a big deal since both of our Pokemon have very good defense stats. And with the disguise broken, using the Steel EMZ on Gyro Ball, turning it into Corkscrew Crash is enough to one-shot. I then need to use some Rock Tombs in order to knock out the Haunter. You know, it's very satisfying that even though Gyro Ball is normally a pretty crappy move, having access to it for a Steel-type Z move coverage on Mimikyu is very funny. There aren't many Steel-type TMs you can get. I also do fight most of the trainers leading up to Poketown. I'm going to want level 43 in order to take on Nanu, so I decided to do some of the training while I'm here. I do get a couple of blackouts in the process because I'm just a human after all. And with all the training done, before I enter Poketown, I'm going to fly back to Melee Island, not only get the rare candy here that's south of Hau'oli City, I can also use Sharpedo to break these boulders in the water south of the professor's house and pick myself up the TM for Rock Slide. I'm going to need a better rock type move for dealing with the Guzma fights. When I do finally get to Guzma, what I'm going to do is just go right away and use one Rock Slide. And unfortunately I missed, and when I do hit my next Rock Slide, it does less than half, which does not activate emergency exit. On the second turn, I do actually use Continental Crush. It doesn't KO the Golisopod, but it does activate emergency exit, and I know the Golisopod is not going to go for first impression just because it has Razor Shell. But believe it or not, I actually get another Rock Tomb miss, and I get another reset. I do win on the third attempt though, you know, when I don't keep missing moves. Before I fight Nanu, there are a couple of things I forgot. I not only go back into the grass to train up to 43, but I also go back to the little Pokemon Center near the Ula Ula Flower Meadows, go behind this camper, and pick myself up the TM for X-Scissor. At least this is going to be my bug move for him. The Alolan Sandslash will have to deal with Leech Life, which I would argue is better because of the healing. I'm going to go into the Nanu fight with the Rock EMZ, Bulldoze, X-Scissor, Sandstorm, and Swords Dance. Against Nanu turn 1, what I'm going to do is use 2 Swords Dances to get +4 attack. Then my plan is to use Z Sandstorm to not only put up a Sandstorm, but also boost my speed by 1. You may be wondering what's the point of that since I have Sand Rush. And honestly, you're correct. As soon as I realize this, I swap out the Rock EMZ for the Adrenaline Orb. I'm just going to rely on Intimidate giving me the speed boost instead. But then again, why do I need the speed boost when I can just use Sandstorm? I guess using the Adrenaline Orb could have me ignore Sandstorm entirely, which I guess is also a decent strat. I go ahead and set up a Swords Dance, and then I knock out the Sableye with 2 Bulldozes. Then on the Krokorok, I go for X-Scissor, and I just have to hope at +1 Persian can be a one-shot, and unfortunately it isn't. It's just very difficult to set up on this Sableye because its Shadow Ball is doing decent damage. It doesn't help that occasionally I get special defense drops. The next time I make it back to the Persian, I am able to have +4 in my attack, well +3 after Krokorok, and at +3, X-Scissor one-shots, and I defeat Nanu with a time of 1 hour, 56 minutes, and 11 seconds. Okay, not too bad. Let's go see how Alolan Sandslash does here. I think both these Pokemon are going to play pretty identically. When I fight the rival after entering Ula Ula Island for the first time, I actually do manage to defeat him. It's just pretty good that Alolan Sandslash does resist psychic moves, so I do resist some of the attacks, and I'm not weak to the Poplio. The only TM I buy while I'm here is Swords Dance, because obviously I could learn Bulldoze, but for some reason I decide not to buy it right away. I glanced back at my notes, and I should have gotten it. I need that move for the Mimikyu as well, so hopefully I remember to pick it up. My vitamin of the day for Alolan Sandslash is I just buy a couple of Carbos. I don't need any protein since I obtained those vitamins naturally. Okay, here we are on the Vikavolt. What I'm going to do is use one Swords Dance. Spark doesn't do too much damage to me, but I do unfortunately get paralyzed. That's not a big deal though, because at +2, Leech Life does more than half. I can keep my health up pretty high with this. I do unfortunately get my accuracy lowered thanks to Mud Slap. I just have to hope I don't miss on the Charge-a-Bug, and thankfully I don't, and I can one-shot it with Leech Life. That is a statement in Gen 1 that would have made 0 sense. Unless you were facing an Executor and Exeggutor, that is. I was also holding the Silver Powder during that fight as well. You can obtain the Silver Powder in the Berry Fields on the first island. It boosted the power of Leech Life by 20%. But seeing as how Leech Life at +2 was already doing about 2/3, I don't think the Silver Powder was necessary. Before heading my way to the Ghost-type trial, I realized I was still quite a bit short on speed EVs, so I go back to the berry tree on Route 10, get some EV reduction berries, and fight some Furo to give myself some extra speed. Then again, I don't need too much speed, I just need 116, which I only needed a couple of berries to ensure I get, just to get rid of some of the useless EVs. By the time I get to the Mimikyu, I have the Steelium Z, and I have Slash, Swords Dance, Bulldoze, and Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball will do more damage than Metal Claw when used as a Z move. Right away turn 1, what I'm going to do is use for Bulldoze to lower its speed. It does hit me with Shadow Claw, but thankfully even though Steel doesn't resist Ghost, it hardly did any damage anyway. So yeah, turn 1 Mimic not really needed for this fight, which is kind of a rarity nowadays. A lot of Pokemon need to rely on the turn 1 Mimic in order to win, but thankfully I didn't need it today. I can then 2-shot the Haunter with Gyro Ball. While I don't get any resets or blackouts to the Guzma fight in Po-Town, I do get a few blackouts on just the random trainers along the way, mainly in the Ula Ula Meadows. I still need to do some training for Nanu. By the time I get to Nanu, I'm going to need to make sure I am a minimum level of 43, but by the time I defeat Gladion, I get exactly level 44. So I think I did a tiny bit too much training, but it's not like that's going to actively harm me. But you know what? Let's go take on Nanu now. I feel more than ready. I am doing a pretty identical strat. I'm going to be holding the Adrenaline Orb and also using Swords Dance on the Sableye, and then I'll just sweep with Leech Life. It's actually easier than the Cantonian Sandslash because my health is constantly being restored. Not like it would have mattered though. When I get to the Persian, even after the Adrenaline Orb, it still outspeeds me somehow. I don't understand why, but at least it was saved for me to be at higher health, especially since it would have discouraged him from going for his Z move. I defeat the Persian in 1 hit and defeat Nanu on the first try with a real time of 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 16 seconds. Even though the Alolan Sandslash is still behind its Cantonian counterpart, it was able to cut its deficit in half. Instead of being behind by 16 minutes and 38 seconds, it's only behind by 8 minutes and 5 seconds, so it was very easily able to catch up during the Ula Ula section of the game. I think the reason it was able to catch up was simply just because it had better resistances at this point. There weren't really that many fire fighting types in this part of the game, so it didn't really have to deal with any of that. However though, I highly doubt Alolan Sandslash can make up 8 minutes. It was able to make up 8 minutes during the third island, so who knows? I might be blown away by this. I mean, I'm doing the voiceover, I already know the results, but let's just pretend I don't know the results, shall we? Right now, we just gotta go to the Aether Paradise, clear out a ton of trainers, and then make our way to Pawnee Island, obviously do some training, then fight Hapu, go through the canyon, end it off with a Komodo trial, and then save our game before the final 8 trainers starting with Lucamine number 2. So I think right now, we're gonna continue with the Alolan Sandslash. At least I have some pretty decent coverage for the Aether Paradise. I have Aerial Ace, Swords Dance, Bulldoze, Leech Life with the Buginium Z. You may be wondering why I'm holding the Buginium Z. The reason I'm holding the Buginium Z is mainly to help out with the Psychic types here like Faba's Hypno, as well as good coverage against the Alolan Muck. That Alolan Muck is so hard to hit for good damage. Thankfully, because of Swords Dance and the Steel typing being very great defensively, I don't have any resets or blackouts during the entire Aether Paradise. As soon as we get to Pawnee Island, inside of the Pokemon Center, the only TM here I'm going to be buying is the TM for Giga Impact. The reason is, I'm going to need Breakneck Blitz later in the game, and I didn't pick up Return. It is nighttime, so I theoretically could have gotten Return, but Giga Impact will do more damage with the Normalium Z anyway, so I think having Giga Impact will be better. Plus, at least if you use it as the Z move, it won't have that recharge turn. I also do fly back to the Hollow Grand Resort, do this double battle with the beauties, and pick myself up the TM for Attract. I also go back to Melee Island, pick myself up the rare candy and the TM for Rock Slide, which for some reason this thing learns. This thing gets Rock Slide but not Rock Tomb. That doesn't make any sense. And with access to all these great moves, I can do most of the training on Pawnee Island pretty easily. You may be wondering what level I need for Hapu. I need a pretty decent level. I need level 55 for Hapu. Thankfully, one of the best ways to get a higher level, even after you've cleared out all the trainers, is you can actually fight this dancer right here who can give you the Focus Sash. She has 4 Oricorios, they all have Focus Sashes, and you could reliably knock out 3 of them and then just die to the 4th one. And also, the reason I need level 55 for Hapu is that way after 2 Swords Dances, I can one-shot the Doug Trio, as well as one-shot the Mudstale. You may be wondering how I'm going to one-shot them. Well, let's play the intro and I'll tell you. Right away on the Doug Trio, what I need to do since I'm running a male Pokemon, I want to use Attract right away, and hopefully turn 1 it goes for Sandstorm, and then during the Attract turns, I need to set up to +4. Obviously this doesn't happen on the first attempt because it never works out that way. On the second attempt though, I am able to get +4, but I get hit at the last minute. You may be wondering if Air Balloon would have been better. Theoretically yes, because it would have just spammed Sucker Punch, most likely. But the problem is, because of my Ice typing, I am neutral to Iron Head, so Iron Head actually would do more damage. If I wasn't part Ice type, then yes, it would have spammed Sucker Punch. But I still need the Buginium Z, so that way when I do get to the Mudstale, Savage Spinout is a guaranteed one-shot, which is needed for +4, and it is needed for level 55. Next up is the Flygon. What I do here is I try to go for Leech Life. The Flygon outspeeds me and one-shots me with Earth Power. I was not expecting that, but I probably should have. Next time I do get back to the Flygon though, it is using Earth Power on me and I do barely survive. The reason I just have to accept the risk at this level is because I know that after I get damaged by an Earthquake, hopefully best case scenario the Doug Trio doesn't go for Earthquake and instead goes for Sandstorm, I should have enough health to barely survive an Earth Power. But I am able to defeat Hapu after just a few tries, so it's not that bad. And right now, going into the Pawnee Canyon, on the very first trainer, his name is Veteran Harry. He has a Torkoal that uses Sunny Day, and he has an Arcanine. Okay, it doesn't use Sunny Day, it has Drought, that's what I meant to say. I got myself an Oka Berry on one of the berry trees on Pawnee Island. This will reduce the super effective damage of Fire-type moves, and I'm 4 times weak to it, and the berry lets me barely survive at 14 hit points remaining. And because of me using a Swords Dance during that first turn, even though I got hit with Intimidate from the Arcanine, even though I got to +1, I am still able to survive. As we do most of these Pawnee Island Canyon trainers, I need to get level 72 after rare candies for Lusamine. I want level 73 for Hapu for specific ranges. After fighting the final trainer in the canyon, Veteran Eric, I get to level 60. If I have all 12 rare candies, I will get level 72, which is exactly what I need. So I have to go back throughout the rest of the Alola region and get the rest of the rare candies I missed, including a rare candy in the Lush Jungle, which requires Machamp Push in order to get. I get myself all the candies, get to level 72, and obviously for most Pokemon the Kommo-o is easy, but we're 4 times weak to fighting, so let's play the rare intro for Kommo-o. This totem fight also does lag pretty bad. I wanted to use Protect turn 1, so I go for a Swords Dance. It hits me with Sky Uppercut, doing about 2/3. Thankfully, my defense is pretty good. I just gotta hope +2 Giga Impact is enough to one-shot the Kommo-o, and I will not find out in this first attempt because it misses. On the second attempt, I decide to hold the Normalium Z instead so I can just use Breakneck Blitz. Not only it'll do more damage, but it also won't miss. And I don't get the recharge turn as well. So then on the Kommo-o, I can just use a regular Giga Impact. I clear up the trial here, get myself the Dragonium Z, which is not going to be useful. Then I can enter the Ultra Wormhole, and then save before the final 8 trainers with a split of 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 17 seconds. Let's see how well the Cantonian Sandslash gets to this point. Thankfully, Cantonian Sandslash's level thresholds aren't as extreme. I only need level 53 for Hapu, and before Lusamine number 2, I gotta use my candies to get 68, so assuming I get all 12 candies, I just have to grind to level 56. That's not that bad. During the Aether Paradise section, I'm actually holding the Rockium Z with Rock Slide instead of X-Scissor and the Buginium Z. I did this because I was confident that a regular X-Scissor could one-shot Faba's Hypno, so I don't get risked with Hypnosis. Unfortunately, my guess was incorrect. X-Scissor allows it to live in red health, and thankfully instead of going for Hypnosis, it just uses Disable. So yeah, we're good. I don't get any resets or blackouts on the trainers here, although when I do make it to Golisopod, I go for Continental Crush right away. The previous Guzma fight was very annoying. I don't want to take any risks here. Unfortunately, he does send out Masquerain, and I get a Rock Slide miss and an Intimidate, so that's not great. Then the Golisopod, I don't miss a Rock Slide this time. I do continue going for Rock Slide. I miss on the Pinsir, and the Pinsir barely survives because of Intimidate, but thankfully I outspeed it. Last up is the Ariados. It does have Shadow Sneak, but for some reason he didn't use it. I guess he was trying to go for a different move, but hey, first try victory, I'll take it, especially with how bad the Po-Town fight went. I also do something pretty funny during the first Lusamine fight. After I defeat the Clefable, I get to level 48, and I decide to teach Sandstorm via level up over Swords Dance. That way, on the second Pokemon, I can use Sandstorm and actually outspeed everything, including the Lilligant, because I did not outspeed the Lilligant. And I am able to defeat it, and then last up is her Beware. It unfortunately does survive my attack and hits me with a Hammer Arm, causing me to lose. But thankfully, you're not required to win the first Lusamine fight, so theoretically, I could have just threw the fight and made it go faster, but the fight gives very good XP yields, and my rule is with all those fights you're not required to win, I have to at least put an effort in. And I did put in an effort, and unfortunately it didn't go very well. On Pawnee Island, there are a couple of good TMs here. I could get Stone Edge, or I could get Giga Impact. I don't buy either one of them right now though, I just go straight to the training on Pawnee Island. The training on Pawnee Island goes pretty smooth, and I'm able to get to level 53. Another major reason for level 53 is that's the level I learned Earthquake. I'm going to go into the Hapu fight with a Citrus Berry, Earthquake, Shadow Claw, and Swords Dance. And right away, obviously, I don't outspeed. I'm going to rely on the Dugtrio setting up Sandstorm for me. That will activate my Sand Rush ability and allow me to one-shot everything. Unfortunately though, the Flygon does switch at the last minute, blocking Earthquake thanks to Levitate, but that's fine though, I can just switch to a different move. Then on the Mudstale, I use Earthquake again. I did not need to use any Z moves, which is just why I just held a Citrus Berry, just in case like the Doug trio used too many Earthquakes and my health got too low. I'm going to go through the vast Pawnee Canyon with my held item mostly consisting of the Ground EMZ. The Ground EMZ with Earthquake turning it into Tectonic Rage is going to be very, very powerful. Most Pokemon in Pokemon Moon are not going to have access to a Z move that powerful because, like I said, the TM for Earthquake is in the post game. And on average, the best ground move you can get is Bulldoze. So yeah, not exactly that great, but at least I have a super effective move for those dang Alolan Mucks. I do look forward to that Muck versus race at some point. I've heard people say that Alolan Muck is actually very good, but I'll have to wait until the day I play it to find out. I go around the region getting the rest of the rare candies, I pick up the TM for Attract as well, go back to the vast Pawnee Canyon, finish off the rest of the trainers, and by the time I finish off the Dragon Trial at the very end, I'm only level 66, barely level 67. I know my notes say I needed level 68 for Lusamine, but when I get to Kukui, I only need level 70. That's the more important thing, is getting the level for Kukui. The reason I say, like, oh, before Lusamine I need level such and such, it's not usually for Lusamine specifically, it's usually to make sure that with the final 8 trainers, I get the level for Kukui that I need. That's the more important factor. I enter the Ultra Space Dimension and save before Lusamine with a real time of 2 hours, 31 minutes, and 29 seconds. Yeah, not only was Alolan Sandslash not able to make up another 8 minutes like it did in the Ula Ula section, it lost way more than 8 minutes. Cantonian Sandslash now leads by 19 minutes and 48 seconds. Needing less of a level for Lusamine and for Hapu as well definitely made a massive difference, and I think we pretty much all know who the winner of this race is going to be. I just wish, like, I can actually just do a versus race where throughout most of the run, I want a Pokemon race where the lead goes back and forth between the two. Those are the more interesting ones, but this is just pretty one-sided. The Melee section definitely fooled some people thinking, oh, Alolan Sandslash is going to win, it gets the better level up set. Well, no, it doesn't do as great because of its weaknesses. But right now, it's time we tackle the final 8 trainers of the game. We're going to start with Lusamine number 2 and Cantonian Sandslash. Right away on Lusamine's Clefable, I set up 2 Swords Dances to get +4. Getting +4 will allow me to one-shot the Clefable with Earthquake, and then next up is the Lilligant. Thankfully, I am able to outspeed it. Then, on the rest of our Pokemon, I can just sweep with Earthquake, and then I can use Shadow Claw for the Mismagius. But on the Beware, to avoid contact with Fluffy, I am actually going to use the Ground EMZ to turn Earthquake into a Z move to prevent this. Although, I'm not sure how necessary this was because I don't think Earthquake makes contact, but either way, the Z move will do more damage anyway. Against Alolan Sandslash, I have the move Poison Jab on my moveset. I got this TM right before Po Town. I'm going to set up some Swords Dances, then use Poison Jab on the Clefable. Next up is the Beware. I have the Fightinium Z with Brick Break to use All-Out Plummeting. This'll one-shot and ignore contact. At least this time Brick Break makes contact. I also have the TM for Thief as well to one-shot the Mismagius. I did not purchase Shadow Claw. That's the reason I have Thief instead. Then I can defeat the Melodic and the Lilligant. On the Gladion fight right here, I'm going to use a Swords Dance on the Crobat. Even though the Crobat outspeeds, it's not able to do too much damage to me. I can one-hit it with Rock Slide, switch to Earthquake for the Silvally, and then next up is the Weavile. I decide to just continue with Earthquake. It outspeeds with Ice Shard obviously, and I'm left at pretty low yellow health, but I am able to win anyway. Thankfully, I didn't need Sandstorm. Do you guys want to know the real reason I'm playing Alolan Sandslash at night even though I'm not getting return? If I play this game at specific times of the night, the Gladion fight will have Hail here. This will activate Slush Rush for free, allowing me to outspeed his entire team, which is going to make the fight very easy. At the How fight on top of Mount Lanakia with Cantonian Sandslash, I'm going to use one Swords Dance and Psychic does less than half, but the second Psychic does leave me at red health. I do one shot with Earthquake though. Next up is the Kamala. It does like to survive things, but the Swords Dances obviously won't let it survive. Then on the Primarina, I'm going to go for Tectonic Rage, guaranteeing the one shot, Then last up is Flareon. It's weak to ground moves, and it has bad physical defense. So honestly, it's pretty much expected that the Flareon's going to be easy. It has been proving difficult with special attackers though. At the Mount Laniakea Pokemon Center with Alolan Sandslash, I'd use a Heart Scale and relearn Icicle Crash. This is going to be my best Ice type move. I don't like how it's 90% accurate though, but you know what? You gotta take what you can get. All the Ice type moves you get by TM in this game are special moves, so we just gotta take what we can get. At least we'll have the Hail for the How fight as well. This will allow me to one-shot the Raichu with Icicle Crash. Next up is the Flareon. I switch on over to Rock Slide. Thankfully we learned that move. Go back to Icicle Crash for the Kamala, and then last up is the Primarina. I have the Rock EMZ. I go for a Swords Dance first. I go 2 Swords Dances, and for some reason I misclick and go for a 3rd Swords Dance. The reason I did that is because I need to start the How fight at level 73. If I start the fight at level 73, this will guarantee that I will get level 75 for Kukui. Especially since by the time I defeat How for real, I'm almost level 74. I do get an unfortunate second blackout though. That was not my fault, that was not planned. But you know what? It's extra XP, I'll take it. I get another couple of blackouts until I'm finally able to win. So now that both of our contenders have beaten How, let's start the final 5 trainers in the league. Let's do this shit. For both Sandslashes today, we're going to be starting off with Kahili, the flying type user. She leads off with Skarmory. I go ahead and use a Swords Dance and then follow it up with 2 Rock Slides. Next up is the Mandibuzz. Using those 2 Rock Slides should allow me to one-shot, but unfortunately it does not. Wait a minute, no, I looked at the PP at the bottom screen. I only ended up using it once. I thought I used it twice. Whoops. Oh well, before the Crobat comes out, I did set up a Sandstorm to activate Sand Rush so I can outspeed. It's not that big a deal whether you outspeed it or not. Her Crobat is very incompetent. Gladion's Crobat is straight up better even though it's a lower level and has lower speed because it actually gets good moves. Kahili for the Alolan Sandslash will be pretty similar. I'm gonna set up just 1 Swords Dance because I guess I only need 1 apparently. Then I can go ahead and use Icicle Crash on the Mandibuzz for a one-shot. Okay, so yeah, I did only need +2. Then on the Oricorio, I just used Icicle Crash instead of going for Rock Slide. You know what, it didn't matter though, Icicle Crash one-shot everything. The next member of the Elite Four that both of them fight is Acerola, the Ghost-type Elite Four member. I don't change my moveset at all for Acerola for Cantonian Sandslash. I just set up some Swords Dances on the Sableye, and I do get to +6, which is what I want, although it might have been a little bit overkill. Then I go for Z Sandstorm, not only putting up the Sandstorm, but giving me +1 to my speed. This essentially guarantees I will outspeed everything. I mainly wanted to outspeed the Frostlass, but then I realized, oh wait, the Frostlass has Ice Shard, and I get a reset because of that. On the second attempt, I set up to +6 again, and I hit myself in confusion because of, obviously, that thing having Confuse Ray. I really wish I would have just held a Person Berry here, but instead I keep holding on to the Z Crystal, which I think is very unnecessary. Acerola is definitely being far more difficult than she needs to be. What I should have done was just hold a Person Berry, use just 2 Swords Dances, and then don't even bother with the Sandstorm, just sweep. But oh well, either way, we are able to defeat Acerola with Sandslash. Let's see how well Alolan Sandslash does. Right away on the Sableye, I go for Icicle Crash just to get rid of it. Next up is the Palossand. I use Icicle Crash on it, thankfully it's weak to ice. A lot of her Pokemon are surprisingly weak to ice. The Dhelmise does survive because of course it does. Then next up is the Frostlass. It does outspeed, but it just uses Confuse Ray on me. I'm holding the Expert Belt for this fight just so I can guarantee that I can one-shot most of her Pokemon. Maybe it was necessary, maybe it wasn't, but at least it's better than holding on to a useless Z Crystal. This is the moment where our contenders are going to split up during the league. Cantonian Sandslash will fight Hala third, while Alolan Sandslash will fight Olivia third. So we're going to switch on back to Cantonian Sandslash and take on Hala, the fighting type Elite Four member. I go into this fight with Attract on my moveset. I'm running a female Sandslash because I want to use Attract on the Hariyama, so that way I can set up some Swords Dances, just to make sure I can one-shot the rest of his team with Earthquake. I definitely do need the extra Swords Dances because the Beware and the Crabominable are very, very defensive. And I do thankfully first try. Now let's switch on over to Olivia with Alolan Sandslash. I go into the Olivia fight with Bulldoze on my moveset. I'm using this for the Probopass and the Golem. I go into the fight with a Chesto Berry so that way when the Relicanth goes for Yawn, I can just set up Swords Dances until the Chesto Berry wears off. Then as soon as it's defeated, the Lycanroc is a one-shot with Brick Break. Then I use Brick Break on the Probopass as well. I mean, Brick Break is fine or Bulldoze, either one would work, but Bulldoze would also be good on the Golem. But looking back at this, I'm not so sure if holding on to Brick Break was the right answer. Brick Break would have been good for both of the contenders today, but I will say though, the Carbink does end up setting up Reflect, so I guess having Brick Break here was fine for that one instance, but it would have been nice if I could have used Safeguard to block Thunder Wave. You know what though, I still beat her on the first try anyway, it's not that big of a deal. Let's continue on with Alolan Sandslash into Hala, our final Elite Four member. Obviously I saved him for last because we're 4 times weak to fighting type moves. I not only got an Oka Berry for Veteran Harry in the Pawnee Canyon, I also got a Chopal Berry. Both of these berries are from the exact same tree, so I actually had to save scum until I found both an Oka and a Chopal Berry at the same time, which thankfully did not take that long. I'm going into this fight with Icicle Crash, Swords Dance, Aerial Ace, and Bulldoze. Right away, I'm going to use Swords Dance. The Chopal Berry will allow me to survive a close combat. Then I can one-shot with Aerial Ace at +2. Next up is the Crabominable. It is a one-shot with Aerial Ace. The Primeape is obviously a one-shot with Aerial Ace. But the question is, will Beware be a one-shot? I'm going to use Icicle Crash, and I missed. You know, why do I expect anything different at this point? On the second attempt, I make it back to the Beware, I go for Icicle Crash, and it one-shots. That's how the fight should have gone. Alright, now we just gotta talk about Cantonian Sandslash with Olivia. Then, both of them can head to Professor Kukui. I haven't really changed up the Cantonian Sandslash's moveset at all. I did go into the fight with a Cherry Berry though, which is pretty stupid because I'm immune to Thunder Wave. But that's fine though, I didn't really set up any Swords Dances, I'm just sweeping with Earthquake. We really don't need to do much else more than that. I guess theoretically a good held item I could have used was the Expert Bell, but even then I'm not sure how useful that would be. We one-shot everything that doesn't have Sturdy. I don't really know what the correct held item here is, I think it was just no held item at all. It was just very easy. And now we are going to fight Professor Kukui with both Pokemon. For Cantonian Sandslash, we're going to be using the Rock EMZ, Earthquake, Sandstorm, Rock Slide, and Swords Dance. So let's get straight into the fight. Starting off on the Lycanroc, I'm going to use the Rock EMZ to give myself Z Sandstorm. This will give me +1 to my speed in addition to Sandstorm. You may be wondering what's the point of it? Well, the Sandstorm's not going to last forever, so when it wears off I'll still have the +1 speed. Then on the Ninetales, it barely survives Earthquake, but the Sandstorm chip damage knocks it out. The Braviary is going to be a 2-hit, but it did end up going for Tailwind at the last minute, which is pretty annoying. Honestly, I probably should have used at least one Swords Dance on the Lycanroc, but I am able to knock out the Incineroar and the Snorlax right afterwards. Then last up is the Magnezone. The Magnezone here really cannot do anything to me. I go for Rock Slide, I don't get a flinch, it hits me with Flash Cannon, not doing too much damage, but it does almost kill me. But that's fine though, after the Rock Slide I can go for Earthquake and clock in. with a real time of 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 9 seconds, with 19 resets and 10 blackouts at level 72, with a game time after the long ass credits of 10 hours and 27 minutes. For Alolan Sandslash, I'm going to be going with a Lumberry, Rock Slide, Swords Dance, Leech Life, and Brick Break. What I'm going to do right away is go for one Swords Dance, as Lycanroc misses Stone Edge. Great, but not necessary. Next up is the Incineroar. I'll outspeed, go for Leech Life, and then it hits me with Flare Blitz, doing a decent bit of damage. Thankfully, on the second hit, I use Leech Life just to heal back a little bit more health. I can switch to Brick Break to one-shot the Snorlax, then use Leech Life on the Magnezone to heal up a little bit. I get hit with Thunder Wave, but the Lumberry is to get rid of the paralysis. Then on the Braviary, I can use Rock Slide, which actually does one-shot because I used a Swords Dance. The Alolan Ninetales, which is last, is a one-hit with Rock Slide, and I can clock in with this thing as well. With a real time of 3 hours, 6 minutes, and 16 seconds, with 15 resets, 19 blackouts at level 76, with a game time of 12 hours and 8 minutes. So yeah, both of these Pokemon did not get good times at all. I think the thing that really holds these two back, for Cantonian Sandslash, it's not starting with great moves. For Alolan Sandslash, it's having a very bad defensive typing. I mean, yeah, in terms of resistances, we're better, but having a 4x weakness to Fighting and Fire, which are pretty common types in these solo runs, it's not good. If we take a look at our tier list and leaderboard to see how well these place, Cantonian Sandslash got a place in the middle of the C tier, just behind Gyarados and Simisage, but ahead of Silvally. And Silvally did not have access to Z moves, remind you. And Alolan Sandslash got a place near the top of the E tier. It did roughly 3.5 minutes worse than Lunala, which had to do a massive grind session for the very first Totem trial, Raticate. It did do better than Lilligant and Simipour, but that's not really saying much. Lilligant, despite having Quiver Dance, just has very bad move coverage. It's just unfortunate, both of these Pokemon are very mediocre. I mean, at least Sandslash in Kanto did perform better. I mean, C tier isn't that bad of a result, but it's definitely not a good one either. Alolan Sandslash was just straight up bad, but not as bad as other Pokemon like Weezing. Oh, good God. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the Mega Evolution Pokemon I do on Crystal. Just remember, if you want access to those patches, go to my community posts and sort by members only. You'll find it. And also, you can also get access to members only videos, such as the unedited version of these runs. Both of the Sandslash runs should be up right now. Those usually get uploaded about a day early. But anyway, our next Pokemon Moonrace, which should be next week unless I decide to take a break again, is going to be Nidoqueen versus Nidoking. These are both Gen 1 staples, but how well do they do in modern generations? Only time will tell. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.